Good afternoon. Hello and welcome everyone to today's Demystifying Cyber webinar. My name is Alex Perry and I'm a member of the Welsh Government Hub team. I'm joined today by Simon and Emil from Tarian, the Regional Cybercrime Unit. Today's webinar will aim to provide you with an increased understanding of cyber security, threats and the simple steps you can take to protect yourself and your school. We'll also hear about support from Tarian that can help your learners identify positive opportunities to use their cyber skills. We'd love to hear from you during today's webinar, so please use the Q&A to ask questions for Simon and Emil. We're recording this webinar and we'll make the recording available through Hub at a later date. I think that's everything I need to say by way of an introduction, so I'm going to hand over to Simon from Tarian now to get us started with Demystifying Cyber. Hi Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm DS Simon Kendall, and I'm joined by my colleague Emma Jones, and we are from Tarian Regional Organised Crime Unit. Now, you'll probably all be sat there thinking, who are Tarian and why are they speaking to me? Well, I just want to take 2 seconds to explain who Tarian are. Tarian are the Regional Organised Crime Unit in red on the map that cover the 3 southern Welsh forces of Wales. So Dyfed-Powys Force Area, South Wales Police Force Area and Gwent Force Area. So I am a South Wales Police Officer, Emma is a Gwent Police Officer, but we come together as regional police officers to combat larger threats, one of which being cyber, which is one of only 4 Tier 1 national threats to the UK. As you can see from the map, we have a number of regional organised crime units across the country, which we can liaise with and do liaise with regularly to get that all UK coverage, including there's one in Police Scotland and there's one in PSNI, which is the Police Service of Northern Ireland. So that's who Tarian are, and that's why we're speaking to you. The way we combat cyber is through a 4 Ps strategy. So I'm going to break those down very quickly for you. We use pursue, which is as you would normally associate with the police, going after the bad guys, locking them up, putting them away. Quite difficult when it comes to cyber. I'll explain that in a minute. Emma is going to talk to you a little bit later on in relation to prevent, which is preventing the youngsters from entering a life of cybercrime, whether they know that or they don't. Protect. So how we protect ourselves, which is going to be the bulk of the first part of the presentation, but also how we prepare ourselves, how we prepare not only us personally, but the organisations we work for. So that's how we break it down in the police with a 4 P strategy. So the aim of this webinar is to demystify this word cyber for you as teachers. And I'm going to talk about these 4 threats in my portion of the webinar. But what I'd first like to say is let's forget the word cyber for a minute. Let's replace the word cyber with technology enabled. Because I think sometimes the word cyber itself is a barrier. I speak to people a lot and I say, oh, I work for the cybercrime unit. And the response that I get is, oh, I don't know anything about that stuff. That's all IT. IT's job is to make the computers and the networks and the systems work. The security is the S in IT. There is no S in IT, okay? Their job is to get the networks up and running and working for you. Security is what we do every day. So you may know what some of these words are that I'm going to talk about: social engineering, phishing, passwords, and shadow IT. But as Alex said, really want to encourage you to ask questions, because it's about you understanding it and then conveying it to your learners. And you'll anticipate, or you may think that the learners know a little bit more about it than you. And that might be the case, but how do we learn? We ask questions and we find out. So I'm going to talk about these things. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is social engineering.
Oh, hi, I can help.
Hot chocolate.
What's the name?
Joel.
What was your name?
Alex.
Alex. There you go, Johnny. If you like our Facebook page, we give you a free hot drink and a free pastry.
We have a new like for Damien. We have a new like for Damien.
Hey, Carla, are you
Standing
standing by?
by. Hi there, can I help?
Yeah, just liked your Facebook page.
Okay, I'll search Facebook now. I'm searching Google. I have a phone number.
I've got his email address.
Okay, Carly, are you ready?
For information on Damien.
Yep, I am.
Mother's maiden name is. He banks with
Carly, this is the girl coming in now with the blue scarf.
What's your name? Nicholas.
Nicola. His date of birth, 7th of May. She lived at 38A.
Just a couple of seconds.
2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address. She's got postcode.
Yep, got it. Damien, age 26, look at this officer.
Oh, do you know what that?
Brody goes to UCL. Martin went to South Thames College. Assistant psychologist at Great Ormond Street. Oh, well.
You know I'm a Christian as well.
Oh yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Anna from Russia.
Okay, so that is a video from Get Safe Online. Get Safe Online are a really good source of personal security, technology-enabled security information, not only for yourselves but for your learners. And we're going to talk about what actually happened in that video and explain it a little bit in a little bit more detail. So that was under the heading of social engineering. So social engineering is defined as the art of manipulating people so they give up confidential information. So I'd like you to think back to that video very quickly, and I'd like you to think of the particular art that was used to manipulate people to give up their confidential information. And in the case of the video, it was very straightforward, like the Facebook page. So I would personally argue they'd already given up their confidential information on their social networks prior to even going anywhere near that coffee shop. So the point of including social engineering is to have a think about what information, not only yourselves personally, but your learners and also the school is putting out there on the social networks, really. I want to show you another one that's doing the rounds recently. So this one has been doing the rounds lately. Which primary school did you attend? We're going to share information. Let's see if we can find old schoolmates here. There's huge danger in simple questions like this. This is a password reset question, as well as the others seen on the right of the screen now. But we're in a digital era where we share information. So we shouldn't be sharing any of those bits of information on the right-hand side of the screen because they could be used to reset your password. I'm going to move on to phishing. Please ask any questions, put them in the box, and we'll deal with them maybe towards the end, okay? So phishing is the biggest attack vector that we see in the police. So people might associate cybersecurity and cybercrime with hacking. It's not the case. I would say 90% of the attacks that are fruitful for hackers and bad guys are through phishing emails. Now, that can be the attachments or the links inside them. But if I was going to make a really good phishing email, I would check out people's social networks and find out a bit more about them. So phishing is linked heavily to social engineering, and phishing emails will be tailored from the information that people garner from social networks. So I'm going to put an example up on you. This is what a phishing attack looks like in real life. Always play it twice for a laugh. So these are the ones that we get through quite a lot. This is a fairly standard Microsoft verification alert phishing email. And the things to look out for are, dear user, and it's not specifically aimed at a person, check out the address that it's coming from. This is coming from fedco.usa and not Microsoft itself. So there's a whole range of questions and things to look out for with phishing emails, which is a completely different webinar, I'll be honest with you. But what I will say is Tarian own a phishing platform where we're able to phish people and sort of build up a resilience against recognizing phishing emails. Because the point is, if you don't recognize them, you'll click on them. And if you've clicked on them, then that's how 90% of attacks are getting through. So that's phishing emails. We'll move on now to an example of both, really. This was a live post on Facebook, which was Aberystwyth University celebrating that they were going to redevelop Pant Celyn, one of their older buildings, for a contemporary ensuite accommodation for 200 students. And the construction company, Morgan Siddle, had been selected to refurbish the historic Welsh Medium Hall of Residence. Okay, so any danger that, I realize I can't see you will answer them in the Q&As, but is anybody see any danger in celebrating this partnership on Facebook? Well, what actually happened was that a couple of weeks after the renovation started, Aberystwyth University got an email with an invoice for the scaffolding that had gone up on the side of the building to commence these refurbishments. So they paid the invoice. Then the next month they had another one, and they paid the invoice. And the next month they had another one, and they paid the invoice. Not until 3 months later, when they had the proper invoice from Morgan Siddle, did they realize that they'd been paying the bad guys. So this is an example of both phishing with a fraudulent invoice and social engineering. So what do we do when we receive a phishing email? Or what do we do now? Well, we probably delete it. And if we're really, really self-conscious, we might go into delete it and delete it from deleted. Or we may report it to our IT company. What we should be doing is reporting phishing emails to Action Fraud via the email address at the top or the website at the bottom. Because if you think about it, who's actually combating the fact that we're getting sent phishing emails? And the answer is no one. So until we start reporting phishing emails, then they're just going to keep happening. So that's what we should be doing in relation to phishing emails. And also there may be structures internally for you to report phishing emails. Okay, passwords, one of my favorite topics now. The advice from the National Cybersecurity Centre is the passwords should be 14 characters long. At the moment, passwords are probably 8 characters long with a capital letter, a special character, and a number. Okay, just bear that in mind for a second. But the advice from the NCSC is passwords should be a minimum of 14 characters long. The reason being that a 6-letter password can be cracked in less than a second. Okay, so think of your email addresses out there, whether they be hub email addresses or personal email addresses. If your password is less than 6 characters long, it can be cracked in less than a second. So that's why the advice is it should be 14 characters long. Now, a study was done on the numbers used in passwords. So they didn't ask people what their password was. They just said, can you tell us the number that's used in passwords? So the top number used in passwords is the number 1, closely followed by the number 2, and then the number 3. There's a slight rise in the 8 and 9. I think the reason for that personally is dates of birth. But the troubling statistic here is the number 1 password is number 1. So the number 1 number is number 1. And then when that password expires, we probably move to number 2. And then when that one expires, we probably move to number 3. So the numbers are consecutive, but also a study was done on the special characters used in passwords. And the top special character used in passwords is an exclamation mark. So we're not only using the number 1, but we're using shift and 1. So it's so predictable. If we've figured it out, who else has figured it out? The bad guys. And just to finish that off very quickly, passwords are 8 characters long with a capital letter and a special character and a number. So where does the capital letter go? At the start. Where does the number go? At the end. Where does the special character go? Probably after the number, or substituted for an at sign for an A. So we've walked through passwords and being so predictable in less than 30 seconds. We can crack passwords very simply if they are of that 8-character format. What we should have on our personal email addresses is something called 2-factor authentication. So this is the way you get a text message sent to your phone. So we should be securing our main email address with 2-factor authentication. Because if you think about it, any other accounts that you open, you have to enter an email address. So you enter your personal email address. So if we get into your personal email, the bad guys get into your personal email address, then we can set up other accounts off it. So that's passwords. Very quickly from me, because I'm conscious of the time, I'm going to mention shadow IT. And for those of you who are thinking, what does he mean about shadow IT? What I mean by shadow IT is you guys have been provided with a format and a network to work in. Now, everybody does this. Everybody finds workarounds and quick ways of doing things. And that is collectively known as shadow IT. What happens with shadow IT is that it does make things a lot easier to work in, but it also opens up some risks and dangers that you're not covered by if you were using the traditional things that you've been given to work in. So I'll give you an example, really. Sort of saving things outside of Hwb, or saving things on desktops and things like that. You're moving outside what you should be doing. Yes, you're trying to make things quick and easy, but then you're not covered by the insurance policies and all the policies and procedures that back you up when you're inside how you should be doing it in the first place, if that makes any sense. So what I would say is be very careful. You shouldn't be doing shadow IT stuff, but it is literally workarounds and easy ways around things, which we all do, but they present massive dangers. Certainly when we're dealing with personal identifiable information. Okay, so be very wary of that. That's rather apt. Don't do it. Okay, so coming to the end, I've got a couple of questions for yourselves. Who is responsible for protecting your organization against cybercrime? So what I mean by that is your school. And I realize, we haven't got a two-way flow of information, so I'll just let you have a think about that. I've already said it isn't IT, it's everyone, okay? And I'd just like to leave you with this, which again, I think is another topic of conversation. As teachers and managers, what plan do you have in place for responding to a cyber incident within your school? I'll tell you the answer now. Ring the headmaster. I don't think that's a plan, okay? That is ringing the headmaster as a single point of contact. One of the headmaster's plans for responding to a cyber incident in the school, whether that be from a pupil hacking a system or from a website defacement of the school website. I think we need a broader conversation around how we respond to cyber incidents in schools, not only from pupils, but from outside threats. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to ask for any questions before we move on to Emir, who's going to chat about the prevent angle.
Thank you, Simon. I'm aware that you can't see the Q&A dialog box, so I'll read through some of the questions that have already come in. I've answered a few of them, but I'll obviously give you an opportunity to add to them if you wish.
Thank you.
So one of the first questions we had was, what age should we start to tackle cyber? It's an excellent question. The minimum age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales is 10 years old. And believe it or not, we have had referrals of people as young as 10 years old to our department. So I believe we all have a collective responsibility to educate young people to make the correct cyber choices. I don't know whether you want to elaborate on that, Simon, but that's quite a detailed answer, really.
Yeah, all I would say is, you know, the example I would use is when we take children to school. I got a 6-year-old. I walk him to school every day, and I take him there and I drop him off. I wouldn't expect him to walk to school on his own, not at the age of 6. So let's take out the walk-in and put him in front of a computer and into cyber. Let's work with them. Let's show them what they've got to do. For me, you can't start them early enough, but I agree. For me, we need to be educating them at the end of primary. So 10, 11. I think once they've gone to comp, we've lost them, if I'm honest. But that's just my personal opinion.
Fantastic. The questions are coming through thick and fast. So perhaps I pick 3 now before
Cool.
continuing with the presentation, and then we can answer more at the end. So an extra brilliant question here. We know some of our pupils under 13 are active on social media. Even if we speak to parents, they don't seem to see the harm, so won't stop their children using the accounts. So have you got any guides for parents that would be useful for those situations? What I'd said was there are plenty of good resources on the website getsafeonline.org that can assist in this matter. I would also signpost you to the school website, which also contains a wealth of fantastic resources for parents and pupils.
Yeah, to be honest, right, this is a really simple one. Google, okay? There are obviously age limits for people being on social networks. They're there for a reason. You know, young learners are not responsible enough and mature enough to go on these websites. I got asked by a local head teacher to go because there was some issues with bullying on Minecraft in a primary school. Children should be 13 to go on Minecraft online. That's not to say they can't play Minecraft. They shouldn't play it online and joined up. So for me, you know, this is always going to be a problem because the parents allow their children on these networks. So it's a huge educational piece for me.
And just the one more then before we continue. Are there signs an email could be a phishing scam? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I covered it very quickly. They won't be addressed to you. They'll be addressed to dear user, or they'll have a very, very vague opening. They'll have a sense of urgency, or a sense of threat, or a sense of the email is too good to be true. There are phishing modules out there loaded onto Hwb, which we've provided from our Not to Fish platform, which will teach you all about how to recognize a phishing email. They're on the partner pages on Hwb.
Fantastic. Shall we move on to my side of the presentation then?
Yeah, go on, sir.
Okie dokes. So I'm going to talk to you today about how the police prevent cybercrime and about our Cyber Choices outreach program for young people. I also hope to strike up a new relationship with schools who may not yet be aware of our role. So my side of the presentation is going to be in 3 parts. Firstly, I'm going to give an overview of the Cyber Choices network and discuss the types of offences that we typically deal with, as well as what we know about the individual's pathways into cybercrime. Secondly, I'm going to give an overview of a national case study of a serious cybercrime. And then the third and final part, I'll be discussing the positive diversions. There are many outlets that people can go to further develop their skills and interests. And again, please feel free to get involved and ask us as many questions as you can, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Cue to next slide, please. So today, young people are immersed in communications and computing technology, including phones, tablets, laptops, PCs, game consoles, TVs, devices, and of course the internet. The Cyber Choices Network was created to help people make positive choices and use their cyber skills in a legal way. So what are our aims then? Well, firstly, we try and educate on the differences between legal and illegal cyber activity, educate on the legislation, the Computer Misuse Act. Pre-COVID, of course, we could do this by attending schools throughout the region. So we've had to adapt the way that we get this message into schools. And it was just today that I'm grateful to the digital resilience team at Hwb, who assisted us in delivering a live Cyber Choices webinar. Should you want to have this delivered, it's ideally suited for year 9 group, year 9 to 11 group. So by all means, you can contact Tarian and we can arrange to have that done. Secondly, we try and encourage individuals to make informed choices about the use of technology with the information that we provide. So we'll do this by even attending at gaming conventions such as Insomnia and places like that. And we, of course, try and deter and divert individuals away from cybercrime. So this means that not only do we prevent individuals from getting involved in cybercrime, but we also engage with those on the cusp of cybercrime or those involved in cybercrime and point them towards positive pathways. And we try and promote legal cyber opportunities. Cue to next slide, please. Okay. So what is cyber-dependent crime? So these are the kinds of offences that we typically deal with in our department. Of course, there are 2 classifications of cybercrime. Cyber-enabled crimes are traditional crimes which can be increased by the scale or efficiency by the use of computers, and by that we could have somebody, bullying somebody online. Tarian focus on crimes that potentially can cause the most damage. And just on the top of our list, if I talk through some of the things that we've got there, the first is a DDoS attack. A denial of service attack is where the offender attacks a network resource on the internet, such as a website, making it unavailable for legitimate users. This is perhaps one of the most common referrals that we've had whilst I've been working for Tarian in the past 3 years. We've had a national operation where I had to issue warning notices to people who are using a DDoS tool that was readily accessible online. In most cases, the young people thought it was a bit of harmless fun and were not aware that they were committing a Section 3 offence under the Computer Misuse Act. The second example on there of cyber-dependent crimes that we see a lot in Wales are ransomware attacks. So these are attacks that were a type of malware that threatens to publish the victim's data or block access to a victim's data unless a ransomware is paid. We see advanced ransomware which encrypts the victim files, making them inaccessible. And then the criminal will demand a ransom payment to decrypt the victim's data, usually in cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin. And the third and final type of attack are remote access Trojans, also known as rats. So this is a malicious piece of software installed on a victim's computer without their knowledge. A criminal can access all data on an infected computer or device. Just imagine this on your own personal machine at home. It's highly intrusive stuff. I had to issue up to 10 cease and desist notices in September of this year for people who had purchased a remote access tool. So the problem is these tools are readily available, particularly to young people. We do a lot of work to take down marketplaces offering these services. But as we all know, the internet is a big place. It's a big problem for us, but the human impact cannot be overestimated. Many of these tools are available and they can literally ruin people's lives. So in order to give you a flavour of the kind of offences that we deal with, I've gone a bit retro and dug up this video from YouTube. The film was made way before I was born and is one that Simon enjoyed watching whilst growing up. It's a good example of how somebody could fall foul of the law.
You're really into computers, huh?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Dialing into the school's computer. They change the password every couple of weeks, but I know where they write it down.
Are those your grades?
Yeah. I don't think that I deserved an F. Do you?
You can't do that.
Already done. Do you have a middle initial?
K, Catherine. These are my grades.
How can anybody get a D in home ec?
That's none of your business. Can you erase this,
No,
please?
it's too late.
What are you doing?
I'm changing your biology grade.
No, I don't want you to do that. You're going to get me in trouble.
No, nobody can find out. There, you just got a C. Now you don't have to go to summer school.
Change it back.
Why? They can't possibly.
I said change it back.
Okay.
I guess I better get going.
For me, mate, that's what people think cyber is.
Yeah.
You know. Oops, sorry.
You've enjoyed it so much you want to watch it again.
I did. Took me back.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is a CREST report, so it's a really interesting report just to give you an idea of pathways into cybercrime. It was information taken from a 2015 workshop with penetration testers. It compared the profiles of cyber criminals and top-level penetration testers to identify commonalities and differences which could identify causes of deviance. The report documented for the first time that gaming was actually a common pathway into committing low-level cybercrime. Now, it's important to emphasize, though, that not all gamers are cyber criminals and not all cyber criminals are gamers, obviously, but at the same time, it was established that gaming was a pathway into cybercrime. So the report also reinforced that financial gain is not usually the primary motivation for individuals to conduct this activity. A lot of it was around the challenge, the social recognition in those online environments, and that was often seen as more important, and the report highlighted the introduction to positive interventions as a cyber prevention technique. So the earlier the intervention, the more likely the positive outcome. Cue to next slide, please. Okay, so this is quite an involved slide, but it's a really good slide, this one. Lots of information on here. It's a chart that shows the most common pathways into cybercrime. This is a slide that was identified as part of that CREST report that I just mentioned. The slide explains when things are legal and when they become illegal. It also details common relationships and parental and education understanding throughout the pathway as well. Now, if you want a more detailed look at this chart, it is available online. The report is a CREST report. It's called Identify, Intervene and Inspire. As I said, it's from 2016, but it's still highly relevant. We still encounter individuals who follow this common pathway into cybercrime. And the next slide, I just want to explain to you a typical case of somebody who's committed very serious cybercrime throughout our network. I've previously described to you what a DDoS attack was. Which essentially is a cyber attack involving the bombarding of a website or web service. And in this case, the individual became disinterested in school from a young age, got sucked into the world of gaming, started visiting gaming forums for interaction and became interested in cheating and trolling, and became interested in how to DDoS, started visiting hacking sections of gaming forums, and before you know it, decided to program their own software aged 15. They commercialize the software age 16, and the subject commits nearly 600 attacks against 181 IP addresses aged 16 to 18. So age 18, they were arrested and found with over £350,000 and nearly 250 Bitcoin profit, and was tried as a juvenile. Clearly, these are the kinds of offences that we want to steer young people away from doing, and this is partly why our network has been established. Sometimes when I have a referral, I can attend at a national workshop with these people. Cue to next slide, please. So just prior to lockdown, I took 3 subjects. There's some pictures here to a workshop at the BT Tower in London of March this year, actually. And it was a fantastic event. The individuals had the chance to speak to reformed hackers, law enforcement, and also prominent cybersecurity companies who gave career advice and guidance on how to develop their skills in a positive way. And we normally have these at least twice a year, although COVID has put a stop to it in the short term. Cue to next slide. So moving on to the third and final part of my presentation, then, what are law enforcement doing to try and prevent these incidents from happening? Well, here in Wales, we are fortunate to have a fantastic network of schools community police officers. We've worked together with the school beat coordinators to devise a school lesson plan that was based on the film that we created called Don't Cross the Line to Cybercrime. The film is aimed at 11 to 14-year-olds and portrays a young man called Jack and follows him throughout the day. He discusses a fabulous job offer that he's had and looks forward to a career in cybersecurity. But the story takes a surprising twist when he reveals that he committed serious offences such as hacking into networks and stealing bank details. So the message is a simple one: don't cross the line to cybercrime. I've delivered this lesson many times throughout the region, as have my colleagues from Schoolbeat. The school resource and film is available for anyone to use. Both the film and lesson are available bilingually in Welsh and English. And there's also a subtitled version. So it can be found on Hwb and the Schoolbeat website under the Partners tab. We also have a school's referral form, which is backed up by a policy document and can also be found on Hwb. You will find on their contact details for us. And during the lockdown period, I also circulated a presentation, which was all audio and visual, to the contacts I've had within schools and colleges. We've also worked hard this year on promoting the uptake of the Matrix competition. Cue to next slide. And here is just some detail on the kinds of referrals. Sorry, I've already mentioned some of these, where they come from. So there's many different sources. Sometimes we have them from schools, from social services, parents, police investigations, and public events. Moving on to places where people can further develop the skills in an ethical way. Sorry, Simon, if you could just backtrack one slide, please. So there's plenty of free resources. I won't dwell on these for too long, but Cybersecurity Challenge website is a fantastic place to go to compete against people or like-minded individuals in capture the flag type competitions. As is Hack the Box, you can ethically test your skills. And the DVLE Code Challenge is something that we often support year in, year out. Unfortunately, this year we had to, the DVLE had to postpone the event due to the lockdown. Immersive Labs is a cracking free resource that was made available over the summer period. And of course, our mascot there on the bottom right-hand side, can you remember his name, Simon? Rory. So Rory the robot. So the Matrix Challenge has been postponed, or the next, the final event actually, the semi-final was postponed. We were due to have in March, but they've now decided to push all our semi-finalists right through to the grand final in January, which will be a virtual event. But here are some of the highlights for you.
The Matrix Challenge is a national competition that's run by all the regional cybercrime units. Yorkshire and Humber Rocco created the competition 2 years ago, and this is the first year it's gone national. We had nearly 8,000 attempt the game in South Wales and about 65,000 around the UK. It was run over 4 weeks in January and February, and we went into as many schools as we could. The challenge was designed to test the participants' knowledge of the law, cybersecurity, and also tested a person's problem-solving skills. Unfortunately, we've had to postpone the regional semi-final until further notice due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Just moving on to our final few slides now. So Cyber Choices have worked with the PSHE Association also to provide 2 free Key Stage 3 lesson plans on the causes and effects of cybercrime and how to avoid it. We'll just pause for a moment on that screen. So if you want to take down that web link there. it's basically whether or not a young person is considering a career in tech. There are numerous fun, exciting and stimulating online activities available to legally test, challenge and develop their cyber skills. And those are some of the places that you can use some of those resources. And then just the final slide, I think, before we revert to the questions. There we are. So if you have concerns over a young person's online activities, talk to us. If a young person has an interest in computers, technology, it's important to have that discussion with them about the use of it. Recognizing their interests and engaging with a young person is key to ensuring that they follow a positive pathway. Anyone can contact the Cyber Choices team, including parents, guardians, carers, teachers, social workers, or law enforcement. So there's our contact detail on the screen there. By all means, if there's anything you wish to discuss with me after the webinar, please get in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Emyr. It's Alex here from the Hub team. Just coming up with a couple of questions here. Perhaps one for you first, Simon, and then perhaps Emyr. We have a question here. How can I encourage learners to think about the consequences of what they post on social media and how cyber criminals will use this?
Great question. I think they need to be more aware of the dangers. So for me, they need to be educated around, what they're putting out there, why they're putting it out there, and there's a couple of good resources on the Hub already around oversharing. So for me, that's crucial. I don't know what you think there, Emyr.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you said there, Simon.
Great, and there's another one here. Should we have a cyber plan? So I'm assuming that's from a school. So
the short, I'll answer that one, Alex. The short answer is yes. You should have an instant response plan. So that cyber plan should be, how the school is going to respond to a cyber attack, whether that be internally or externally, but also what plan is there, internally to educate the learners on cyber. So for me, there's not just one cyber plan, there's a number of cyber plans.
Excellent, thanks, Simon. And possibly one here for you, Emyr. How can I spot a learner who may be straying into cybercrime without knowing it?
I think it's about trying to reinforce those messages, Alex, that we've just discussed on the last few slides, really, just to engage that young person in conversations about their use of technology and computers. And clearly, if you do have any concerns, then you, by all means, you could contact us at Tarian. But we also provide that Cyber Choices webinar that I mentioned earlier, and that you've kindly assisted us with broadcasting to our region. And by all means, we can deliver those sessions at school virtually if a school wants that to be done.
That's great, thanks, Emyr. And I think you've already covered this in your final slides, but just the final question was, what opportunities are there for learners to use their cyber skills positively?
Yeah, I think it's bang on, perhaps the third or fourth slide from the end. There are plenty of great resources to be found on the internet. Cyber Discovery is another program that I hadn't mentioned much about, but I know that the competition's ongoing at the minute, and it's well worth entering. And it's about seeking those places where they can develop those, further develop their skills. The Cyber First program is a fantastic initiative. And it's one that normally over the summer period they'll have 3 or 4 events for learners aged 13 to 17, I believe, just to develop the skills and interests. And normally we'll have a slot there, a presentation slot, where we can talk about people who have unfortunately overstepped the line, as well as trying to encourage them into following their career choice by developing those cyber skills.
Yeah, we don't want to discourage people from using their cyber skills. We just want to encourage them to use them in a way that doesn't break the law and the Computer Misuse Act. So we'd encourage people into, coding clubs and hack the box challenges, capture the flag challenges. as Emir says, really to develop those skills, because there is a cybersecurity skills gap and shortage. So these are the cybersecurity professionals of the future.
Excellent, thanks both. And I think it's just worthwhile saying from a hub perspective as well, we do have a number of different opportunities that we promote through our Keeping Safe Online area on the site. So it's worth keeping your eyes on that area of the site for the latest opportunities that are coming up. We've just had another final one in that's come in. Are there any cyber training packages available for teachers?
I think we both stunned to silence on that. I'm not actually aware of one myself. However, I hope that some of the information that we've provided today will help. Oh, go on then.
It's not specific for teachers, but it will give you, it'll open your eyes. It's a free future learn course on an introduction to cybersecurity, which anybody can take. But that is what this is about, really, and trying to make people and teachers, not just teachers, but people more aware of the word cyber, and cyber is the problem. The word cyber is the problem. So any education that anybody can get would be fantastic. So yeah, it's a free future learn course, the introduction to cybersecurity.
Thanks, Simon. That's great. Just from a hub perspective, I think one of the previous questions was around phishing, and there is a training package for teachers on Hub that can be accessed there, so you can find that in the Q&A. And we're also looking at developing a number of other training packages which will be upcoming in the following months. So keep your eyes peeled for those. So I think that's all the questions from us here. So just a huge thanks to Simon and Emir from Tarian, and have a good evening. Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Thank you.